What if the people who shaped your past also held the keys to your future? But secrets and betrayals stood in the way. Imagine walking through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle and stumbling upon two little girls with eyes so hauntingly familiar. They mirror the woman you once loved deeply. A love lost to time, lies, and silence. How do you rebuild a family fractured by decades of deception? Can a powerful man, who has everything money can buy, finally find what truly matters? Love, redemption, and belonging before it's too late. This story is about Gabriel Hunter, a calm yet fiercely determined tech billionaire, whose world shifts when he discovers that the daughters of his childhood love are now orphaned and in need of him. But as he fights for their future, shadows from his past threaten to unravel everything. What secrets did his own mother hide? How far will he go to protect these fragile girls? And can love really heal wounds this deep? Join us on this emotional journey of loss, courage, and hope. If you're ready to feel every heart-wrenching moment, hit like, share with someone who needs this story, and subscribe to our channel. Let's dive in. The first day of spring arrived with a steady, soaking rain over Asheville, North Carolina. It had been coming down since before sunrise, soft, insistent, and cold, the kind of mountain rain that silences birds and paints the city in a quiet silver. Gabriel Hunter pressed the side of his palm against the window of his penthouse, staring down 14 floors to the slicked brick streets. Cars rolled by with their headlights on, casting distorted patterns across puddles. The world outside seemed paused, caught in that in-between hush of early morning and real life. Gabriel's phone buzzed, a digital chirp slicing through the silence. The reminder glowed on the screenboard meeting 8:30 a.m. He closed his eyes, let out a breath, and counted the seconds between the chimes of a clock in the hallway. In theory, he should have been suiting up another tailored jacket, another performance for the board, another day convincing people he was in control. But something in his chest felt restless and unfinished. The coffee pot in his kitchen sat unused, as it had for weeks. Gabriel didn't want to choke down another bland, expensive blend from his own machines, or worse, drink the bitter, overbrewed sludge they'd serve in the boardroom. He shrugged on his raincoat, grabbed his keys, and stepped into the echoing hallway, leaving his world of quiet, gleaming glass behind. Outside, the city felt different. Rain shimmered on the pavement, blurring the sharp edges of buildings and muting the colors. Gabriel let the droplets soak his hair as he walked briskly, hood down, towards Maple and Main, a small, family-run bakery where he'd once been a regular, back in the early days before anyone knew his name. He passed the playground where children sometimes screamed with laughter, now deserted. He passed the mural of a phoenix on the side of the library, colors running and bright against the gray. Each familiar landmark brought a flicker of memory. Flashes of a younger self biking with friends, sharing secrets in the rain, dreaming of futures big enough to outlast their own shadows. Rounding the corner by the bakery, Gabriel stopped. Something had changed in the usual tableau. Beneath the striped awning, pressed up against the glass of the closed door, huddled two small figures. They sat side by side on the stoop, their knees drawn to their chests, soaked shoes poking out from under two thin jackets. Both girls he saw now had the same wild, coppery hair spilling in tangled waves. Their faces were pale, pinched with cold, freckles scattered over their noses. They looked impossibly alike. Twins. One had her arms wrapped around a battered purple backpack. The other clutched a worn-out plush fox, stuffing poking out of one seam. Their heads tilted up in unison as he approached. For a moment, Gabriel thought he must be hallucinating. The shape of their eyes large, almond-shaped. The exact shade of moss after rain was hauntingly familiar. He stopped a few paces away, unsure if he was intruding. The taller twin looked him up and down with cautious, almost adult assessment. "Excuse me," Gabriel said, soft but clear. "Are you all right out here?" The second twin shifted closer to her sister, eyeing him warily. "We're just waiting," said the first, her voice careful but polite. "For what?" "Our mom," she said. "She told us to wait here while she—" The girl hesitated, glancing at her sister, who finished for her, while she went to get medicine. Something about their voices, the quiet strength and the musical cadence, made Gabriel's heart knock in his chest. He crouched to their level, rain pattering around them, and tried to soften his expression. "What's your name?" he asked. The practical twin drew herself up. "I'm Ivy," she said, "and this is Sienna." Sienna. The quieter one, tucked the fox under her chin, not quite meeting his gaze. Gabriel offered a gentle smile. "I'm Gabriel." The girls exchanged a look, one of those silent, twin-only communications. "Are you from Asheville?" Sienna asked quietly. "I am," Gabriel replied. "Lived here my whole life. My grandma used to bring me to this bakery after school." A pause. Then Ivy asked, "Do you know when the bakery will open?" Gabriel shook his head. "Not today. I'm afraid. Mondays they're closed. Is your mom nearby?" Another quick glance between the girls. Sienna's lower lip trembled, but she nodded. "Sometimes she gets sick," Ivy said softly, as if admitting a secret. "She said to wait here so we wouldn't get lost." "Have you had breakfast?" Gabriel asked. They shook their heads in tandem. The practical details of their hunger and the rain on their jackets felt suddenly enormous to Gabriel. He looked down the street, considering his options. "Would you let me buy you some breakfast?" he asked. Ivy's eyes narrowed. "We're not supposed to go with strangers." Gabriel nodded, respecting the caution. "That's smart. How about this? I'll get something from the diner over there, and you can watch me through the window the whole time." "Okay. You can even pick what you want. Then we can sit out here together until your mom comes back." After a moment, Ivy relented. Sienna's stomach growled, giving her away. "Pancakes," Sienna whispered. Inside the diner, Gabriel kept one eye on the twins through the rain-streaked window. He ordered pancakes, eggs, and 2 cups of cocoa, then returned to the stoop, offering the takeout bags and drinks at arm's length. The twins ate with quiet, determined focus, no fussing, no complaints, just the simple, necessary act of children, too used to uncertainty, as they ate. Sienna loosened, humming softly under her breath, feet swinging over the edge of the step. "Thank you," Ivy said at last, licking syrup from her fingers. "Most people just walk by." Gabriel felt an ache, a deep, old guilt for every time he'd kept walking in his own life. He tried to make conversation. "So, what grade are you two in third?" Ivy said, proud. "But we missed some school. Mom says we'll catch up when she gets better." He nodded, careful not to push. "Your mom sounds brave," he said. "She is," Sienna whispered. "She's the bravest person in the world," Ivy echoed, squeezing her sister's hand. Gabriel watched them for a while, 2 small girls clinging to each other on a rainy street, waiting for a mother who wasn't coming back soon enough. In the green of their eyes, he caught a memory, a summer field, a young girl laughing in the rain, daring him to chase her, promising never to forget him. Evelyn Monroe. The world seemed to tilt, just for a second. He tried to keep his voice steady. "What's your mom's name?" Ivy and Sienna answered together. As twins do, Evelyn. Evelyn Monroe. The name hit Gabriel like a rush of wind, old longing, old hurt, and a hope he'd spent a lifetime burying. He looked at the twins, Evelyn's daughters, her eyes, her spirit, and he knew in that instant that his day, his life, was about to change forever. He was late for his meeting, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, Gabriel felt the rain on his skin and the thrum of fate in his heart. He wasn't sure why, but he had the sense that everything that mattered was right here, under this awning, waiting for him to choose. Gabriel Hunter watched the twins finish the last bites of their pancakes, heads bent together, their movements in sync the way only siblings, especially twins, can manage. The world kept moving around them, early morning dog walkers in raincoats, a delivery truck thumping crates onto the sidewalk, the neon sign of the diner flickering through the drizzle. But beneath the awning, time seemed suspended. He hadn't felt this quiet inside himself in years. Sienna wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and blinked at Gabriel, her green eyes enormous and solemn. "You're not going to leave us here, are you?" He shook his head, gentle but firm. "I'll stay until your mom comes back. Promise." Ivy, more cautious, studied him. "Do you work around here, I do?" he replied, realizing he'd never actually walked this neighborhood in months. "My office is just a few blocks away, but I haven't had breakfast here in forever." He smiled, trying to set them at ease. "I used to come to this bakery when I was your age, too." "Was your mom with you?" Ivy asked, surprising him with her directness. Gabriel hesitated. He felt the old ache, a memory of empty kitchens, foster homes, and his mother's face blurring in the haze of time. "Sometimes," he answered softly, "but mostly I was on my own." Sienna looked up. "That's sad." "Not always," Gabriel said. "Sometimes being alone lets you see things other people miss." He smiled at Sienna's frown. "But it's better to have someone with you." Ivy hugged her backpack tighter. "Mom says we have to stick together. She says we're stronger that way." "Your mom's smart," Gabriel said. "What's she like?" The girls brightened a little. Sienna leaned in. "She tells stories at bedtime, even when she's tired from work. She makes up ones about a fox and a bird who go on adventures." Ivy nodded. "She fixes things like the sink when it leaks. She helps us with homework, even when she's sick. And she makes the best grilled cheese." Gabriel imagined Evelyn Monroe, the girl he'd loved long ago, now a mother, raising these two on her own. He tried to picture her as she might be now older, probably thinner, the laughter in her eyes dimmed by worry and pain. He felt a rush of both longing and fear. He noticed Sienna glancing at the street, biting her lip. "Do you want to call your mom?" he asked. "We don't have a phone anymore," Ivy said. "She had to sell it." Gabriel nodded, tucking that detail away. He glanced at his own phone. 9 missed calls from the office, 3 from Julian Black, his best friend and COO, and a slew of unread emails about the morning's meeting. He ignored them all. "If you want, you can use my phone," he offered. "Or we could call the hospital, if that's where she is." Ivy considered him. "She doesn't like to ask for help." "Sometimes," Gabriel said gently, "even the bravest people need help." Sienna touched the fox in her lap, gazed far away. "Mom says it's okay to trust someone new if your heart tells you it's safe." Gabriel smiled, touched by the quiet wisdom. "Your mom's right. You have good instincts." A silence fell, comfortable and close. Gabriel remembered the last time he'd seen Evelyn. It had been at the county fair, a summer festival beneath strings of lights. She'd been 17, wild-haired and laughing, dragging him toward the carousel. He remembered how she'd pressed a note into his hand, promising to write. He remembered the weeks, then months, waiting for her letters that never came. He'd gone off to college, then to Silicon Valley, then back to Asheville after his company soared. But some part of him had never stopped wondering why she'd disappeared, why the letters never arrived, why the only girl he'd ever truly loved seemed to have vanished from the earth. He shook himself from the memory as Sienna shivered, pulling her knees to her chest. "Cold?" he asked. Sienna nodded. He shrugged off his raincoat and settled it over both girls' shoulders, ignoring their protests. "You're doing me a favor," he said. "Now I get to feel the rain for once." Ivy peered up at him. "Do you think our mom is okay?" Gabriel didn't want to lie. "I hope so. Sometimes. The hospital can take a while. But you did the right thing waiting here." He glanced down the street, his own heart pounding with worry. Ivy reached for his phone, as if she'd made a decision. "Maybe we should call the hospital." Gabriel scrolled through his contacts. "What's the name? Asheville Regional," Ivy replied. "She said that's where her doctor is." He dialed, handed the phone to Ivy, and waited as she spoke to a nurse at the front desk, voice small but determined. "We're looking for our mom, Evelyn Monroe. Can you tell her Ivy and Sienna are waiting?" He could hear the nurse's sympathetic tone. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'll check." After a few minutes, the nurse returned. "Your mom is still with her doctor, but she's okay. She asked if you're safe." Ivy looked at Gabriel, who gave a small, reassuring nod. "We're okay," Ivy said. "Can you tell her we're with Gabriel?" There was a pause. Then, "She says thank you for helping the girls. She'll be out soon." Ivy handed the phone back, relief obvious in her shoulders. "She's okay," she told Sienna. Gabriel smiled. "See? Sometimes good news does show up when you least expect it." The rain began to ease, turning to a light mist. People hurried by with umbrellas, the city gradually waking up around them. Gabriel felt the weight of his own life pressing at the edge of this moment. The responsibilities, the boardrooms, the constant pressure to keep everything running. But sitting here with Ivy and Sienna, he realized none of that mattered right now. For the first time in years, he let the demands wait. Sienna looked at him. "Why were you out here so early?" Gabriel thought about it. "I guess I was looking for something, too. Maybe a little peace, or a reason to remember what really matters." Ivy studied him, then nodded. "Mom says people who listen are good people." He chuckled. "I hope she's right." Time stretched on, gentle and slow. Gabriel found himself talking with the girls about small things. Their favorite books. Ivy liked mysteries. Sienna liked fairy tales. Their school, Blue Ridge Elementary. Their teachers. Their dreams for the future. "I want to be an inventor," Ivy said, "so I can fix things for people." Sienna's voice was soft. "I want to paint places no one has ever seen, maybe on big walls." Gabriel encouraged them, feeling hope and wonder rise in him. The ordinary details of their lives, their small worries, their bravery, it made everything sharp and real. He wondered what his life might have been if he'd found a way to hold on to Evelyn, if their paths hadn't been torn apart. Eventually, a nurse in blue scrubs hurried across the street. Umbrella in hand, she spotted them and waved. "Ivy, Sienna," she called. The girls jumped to their feet. Gabriel stood too, his heart in his throat. The nurse introduced herself as Mary Beth Collins, Evelyn's best friend and neighbor. "Your mom's still with the doctor," she explained. voice kind, but tired. She asked me to come get you. She eyed Gabriel. You must be Gabriel. Evelyn told me to thank you. He nodded, swallowing the urge to ask 100 questions. Of course. I'm happy to help. Mary Beth eyed him thoughtfully. She said you'd understand. She said she hoped you'd remember her. Gabriel felt the world tilt again. I do remember, he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. Mary Beth squeezed his arm. She wants to see you. When she's ready. The twins turned to him, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Ivy reached for his hand. Surprising herself, will you come with us? He nodded, voice steady but filled with promise. I'll be right here. As they crossed the street together, Gabriel realized how much a single morning could change a life. The rain, the hunger, the small kindnesses. None of it was accidental. He felt a tremor of hope, fear, and anticipation rise in him, all tangled together. He was stepping into the unknown, but this time he was ready to face whatever waited. Asheville Regional Hospital looked stark and washed out in the morning light, a pale monolith against the blue haze of the mountains beyond. Gabriel Hunter had never liked hospitals, the antiseptic smells, the hushed voices, the way time seemed to flatten into long corridors and flickering overhead lights. But as he followed Ivy and Sienna through the automatic doors, his old discomfort dissolved beneath a stronger, unfamiliar urgency. Mary Beth Collins guided them through the lobby, her presence brisk but gentle. Your mom's with Dr. Lynn right now, she told the girls, leading the way to a waiting area that overlooked a rain-dappled garden. Ivy settled onto the nearest chair, setting her battered backpack between her knees, while Sienna perched beside her, clutching her fox. Gabriel lingered, unsure if he belonged. Mary Beth motioned him to sit. You should wait with them, she said. Her gaze softened. You really don't remember me, do you? Gabriel blinked, studying her. Were you at Franklin High, he guessed? She laughed. Just a breath of the teenager she must have been. I was a year behind you. Evelyn and I used to pass you notes in math class. She never stopped talking about you, her Gabriel with the careful eyes. I'm glad you're here. She left the words hanging, her meaning clear. Don't disappear again. Ivy glanced at Gabriel, then at Mary Beth. Is Mom really sick? She asked in a whisper so soft it barely reached across the space between them. Mary Beth knelt in front of the girls. Your mom is brave, she said. But yes, she's very sick. That's why it's important you're here, together. That's what she wants most. Gabriel watched the exchange, his insides a mix of dread and longing. He wondered what it cost Evelyn to keep her daughter's spirits alive, to hold back the worst truths and let them have hope for as long as possible. Sienna squirmed, her voice small. Will she get better? Mary Beth hesitated, then tucked a stray lock of hair behind Sienna's ear. Dr. Lynn is doing everything she can. That's why we have to be extra strong. For your mom. For each other. Ivy nodded, pressing her lips together. Gabriel marveled at the depth in her eyes, far older than her years. He recognized something of Evelyn in that steady resilience, the same refusal to let life turn her cold. The minutes stretched. Gabriel checked his phone, thumb hovering over a dozen missed calls from Hunter Technologies. He ignored them. The board could wait. Whatever decisions needed making about mergers or money or the next big market disruption, they were trivial compared to this moment. Here with the two small girls and their hopes balancing on a hospital bench, he remembered a time when his own future had balanced on a similar edge. when he'd waited in another hospital, years ago, praying for a miracle that never came. That old memory of foster parents and disappointment, of the world's unfairness, made him clench his fists. He wouldn't let history repeat itself. At last, Dr. Miriam Lynn appeared in the hallway, a small woman in a patterned headscarf, her presence calm and commanding. She smiled gently at Ivy and Sienna. "I hear you brought the sunshine with you today." "Is our mom awake?" Ivy asked, rising to her feet. "Dr." Lynn nodded. "She's been asking for you. Both of you. And Gabriel. If he'd like to come." She turned to Gabriel, her eyes kind but sharp. "Evelyn mentioned you might be coming." Gabriel's chest tightened. He tried to hide his nerves, following the others down the corridor. He felt Ivy reach for his hand so naturally, as if she'd always known him. Sienna followed, a step behind. Her fox gripped so tightly Gabriel thought the seams would finally split. Room 312 was small and warm, decorated with faded watercolor paintings and a worn quilt folded at the foot of the bed. Evelyn Monroe lay propped up against white pillows, her copper hair dulled to a burnished gold, her face pale but unmistakable. Her eyes the same green as her daughter's widened as they entered. For a moment, she looked like the girl Gabriel remembered from another life, the spark, the hope, the wild joy. Then the moment passed, replaced by the lines of pain, the fatigue that comes from too many nights alone. The girls rushed to her side, careful not to disturb the wires and monitors. Mom Sienna cried, climbing onto the bed beside her. Ivy settled on the other side, laying her backpack gently at Evelyn's feet. Evelyn smiled, the effort obvious but the warmth genuine. "You two, my brave girls." She pulled them close, kissing their foreheads. "Thank you for waiting for me." Ivy glanced at Gabriel. "He helped us, Mom. He got us breakfast and stayed with us." Evelyn's gaze shifted to Gabriel. Her voice wavered. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to." Gabriel swallowed, emotions surging regret, gratitude, the old ache of lost time. "I'm glad I did," he managed. "It's good to see you. Evelyn." She blinked, searching his face as if putting together pieces of a puzzle. "You haven't changed as much as I thought," she said. "Still too tall, still too serious." Gabriel let out a shaky laugh, the tension easing for a moment. "And you still have that look, the one that says you'll win any argument you start." A tear slipped down Evelyn's cheek. She brushed it away, steeling herself. "It's good you're here," she whispered. "For the girls. For me." Mary Beth hovered near the foot of the bed. "I'll go see about some lunch," she said, giving Gabriel a look that said, "Take your time. Doctor." Lynn reviewed a chart at the window. "You have a few minutes," she said. "Let me know if you need anything." As the door closed, silence fell. The girls nestled into Evelyn's arms, their breaths slowing, their worries eased by her touch. Gabriel found himself unable to speak at first, the weight of what had been lost, of all the letters never sent and calls never made, pressed on his chest. Evelyn spoke quietly, so the girls wouldn't hear. "You probably have questions." Gabriel nodded, voice thick, 1,000. But right now, just one. He looked at her directly. "What do you need? What can I do?" She studied him, weighing his sincerity. "I need to know they'll be safe," she said, stroking Sienna's hair. "That someone will fight for them, even when it's hard." Gabriel felt the promise settle inside him. "You have my word," he said. "Whatever happens, I'll be there." Evelyn closed her eyes. a deep breath shuddering through her body. "Thank you." Ivy glanced up, worry creasing her brow. "Are you going to get better?" Mom Evelyn's voice softened. "I'm going to try as hard as I can, but I want you to remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone. You have each other. You're so loved." Gabriel's heart twisted. He felt a sudden, desperate wish to turn back time, to change the course of fate, to carry Evelyn's burdens for her. Sienna nestled closer, already half asleep in the warmth of her mother's arms. Ivy took Evelyn's free hand, squeezing tightly. For a while, they simply sat, no need for words, just the quiet sounds of hospital machines and rain against the window. At last, Dr. Lynn returned. "Time's up for now," she said gently. "Let's let your mom rest." The girls hugged Evelyn fiercely, reluctant to let go. "I'll see you soon, Mom," Ivy whispered. Sienna kissed her cheek. Gabriel waited until the girls had stepped out. He lingered at the door, looking back at Evelyn. Their eyes met. A whole conversation passed between them, a history of love, separation, forgiveness, and hope. Outside the room, Ivy slipped her hand into his. Sienna trailed behind, head lowered. Mary Beth returned with sandwiches and juice. She looked at Gabriel, understanding flickering in her gaze. "You're in deep now, aren't you?" she murmured. Gabriel nodded, the answer simple and honest. "Deeper than I ever expected. But I'm not running." As they sat together in the hallway, Gabriel watched the girls eat, their laughter small but bright in the sterile air. He realized that he'd been given another chance, not just to reconnect with his past, but to become something more for these girls, something he'd always hoped, but never quite believed he could be: a father, a protector, maybe in time, even a family. He felt both terror and joy. He didn't know if he was enough, but he knew he had to try. The sun was barely beginning to burn through the clouds when Gabriel Hunter led Ivy and Sienna Monroe out of Asheville Regional's Pediatric Oncology Wing, the scent of antiseptic lingering in his hair and clothes. It was the kind of morning that tried to be hopeful light glinting off rain-soaked pavement. The air washed clean, but as they moved through the corridors, Gabriel felt anything but light. The girls walked close, Ivy's hand in his, Sienna silent and thoughtful beside them. Mary Beth Collins, always a step ahead, guided them toward the small lounge by the elevator. "Here," she said, setting a juice box and a pack of animal crackers in front of each twin. "I'll check with Dr. Lynn about when you can visit again." Gabriel knelt beside the table, watching the girls open their snacks with automatic, tired hands. "You both did great in there," he told them gently. "Your mom was really happy to see you." Ivy nodded, but didn't speak. Sienna took a sip of juice and looked out the window at the courtyard where a few patients, bundled in robes and blankets, huddled on benches with IV poles. "Why can't we stay with her?" she whispered. Gabriel hesitated. He wanted to protect them from every sharp edge of reality, but he knew honesty mattered. "The doctors need to help her rest," he said. "But you'll see her again soon, and you have each other. That's really important." Sienna's shoulders slumped, and Gabriel felt a twinge of helplessness. He wanted to do more, fix things, take away the fear in their eyes. But he'd never been a parent, never even been someone's uncle or steady presence. He wondered, suddenly, if he was already failing at something that mattered more than anything else he'd ever attempted. Mary Beth returned with a clipboard. "Dr. Lynn says you can visit again tomorrow after school, if you like. I'll walk you out." Gabriel nodded, thanking her, and her eyes lingered on him a beat longer than necessary. He recognized something in her gaze, a silent hope, or maybe a warning. Out in the parking lot, rain clouds scattered and the world felt unexpectedly wide. "My place is nearby," Mary Beth said. "You can rest there until your mom's ready, if you want." Or she turned to Gabriel, voice measured. "Do you have somewhere safe for the girls to be?" Gabriel's heart pounded. I have a house in Biltmore Forest. It's big and probably a mess. Not very kid-friendly." He looked down at the twins, their faces expectant, a mix of caution and longing. "We can go with him, right?" Ivy asked Mary Beth, as if she were the authority. Mary Beth gave Gabriel a long, searching look. "Will you call me when you get there?" she asked, tone both kind and stern. "The girls will need clothes, toothbrushes, school things." Gabriel nodded. "Of course." He glanced at the twins. "Let's swing by your place first and get whatever you need." 10 minutes later, Gabriel's SUV purred down winding roads to a cluster of low-income apartments tucked behind a shuttered gas station. The girls directed him to a unit on the second floor, its door adorned with faded stickers and a hand-painted sign. "The Monroe girls live here inside." The small apartment was clean but threadbare. Gabriel let the girls lead the way. Sienna packed a duffel bag with pajamas, a notebook, and a crumpled watercolor set. Ivy, practical as ever, found their toothbrushes, a plastic bag of socks and underwear, and a folder of school papers. Gabriel paused in the living room, absorbing the space. Photographs taped to the fridge. Evelyn with the girls on a hiking trail. A birthday cake covered in lopsided candles. Messy, joyful handwriting spelling out "We love you, Mom." There was no father in the pictures, no other family, just the three of them against the world. Sienna wandered over, clutching her fox. "Mom keeps her special things in that box," she said, pointing to a battered trunk beneath the window. Gabriel knelt and opened it, feeling like an intruder. Inside were keepsakes, childhood drawings, hospital bracelets, a collection of letters, and a faded envelope with G. Hush scribbled in familiar handwriting. His breath caught. He recognized Evelyn's script. He tucked the envelope away, unsure what to do with it yet, but certain it was meant for him. "Ready?" he asked softly. Both girls nodded, each holding one of his hands as they left the apartment. For what? Gabriel realized. Might be the last time. On the drive through Asheville's hills, Gabriel tried to think of what to say. He wasn't sure how to talk to children, not about grief, not about hope. He settled for honesty. "Your mom is very brave," he said. "She's fighting hard, and I'm going to help however I can. That's a promise." The girls didn't reply, but Ivy squeezed his hand, and Sienna gave a tiny nod. Gabriel's house, perched on the edge of the Biltmore Forest, was enormous and echoing. Windows stretched floor to ceiling, offering views of endless trees. The girls' feet sounded impossibly small against the polished wood floors. The place, so often a symbol of his success, now felt almost embarrassing. Too large, too empty, every room a reminder of solitude. He guided them to the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" Sienna shook her head. "Can we just sit for a minute?" Gabriel nodded, letting them take the lead. He watched as Ivy arranged their bags with quiet precision, and Sienna wandered the room, eyes wide at the unfamiliar appliances and artwork. A pang of doubt gnawed at Gabriel. What did he know about comfort, or family dinners, or making a home? He'd built companies, not lives. But the girls needed more than money now. They needed safety, warmth, trust. As evening approached, the girls curled up on the living room couch, flipping through a storybook. Gabriel sat across from them, Evelyn's envelope still heavy in his pocket. Should he open it? Was it right? He decided to wait until the girls were asleep. Ivy looked up suddenly. "Do you think our mom will get better here? If we wish hard enough," Gabriel's heart clenched. "Sometimes wishing helps," he said softly. "But loving someone, being there for them, that's the strongest magic of all." Sienna turned the page, her small fingers tracing the illustrations. "Will you stay with us tonight?" Gabriel nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." When the girls were finally asleep in the guest room, sharing one big bed, Gabriel went out onto the balcony. The city lights flickered in the distance, rain still misting the night air. He pulled out the envelope, hands trembling. Inside, he found a letter in Evelyn's hand. "Gabe, if you're reading this, it means I'm too scared or too proud to say what's in my heart. Maybe I'm gone. Maybe you're back for the girls. I never stopped loving you. I wanted to tell you everything about the twins, about the struggles, about the loneliness. But I thought it was kinder to let you live your life, to protect you from my burdens. Now I see how wrong that was. I see the cost of silence and pride. If you're here, please, fight for our girls. They need someone who sees them, who believes in them. They need family. Forgive me for the years apart. All my love." Evelyn Gabriel folded the letter, grief and resolve swirling inside him. He'd always been haunted by the sense of something missing. Now, he understood it had always been Evelyn, and what they might have built together. As dawn crept over the mountains, Gabriel made a silent vow. He would fight for Ivy and Sienna. He would give them a home, a future, even if it cost him everything else. In the stillness, he could almost hear Evelyn's voice. "Don't let them go. Don't let them down." And he promised, to her memory and to himself, that he wouldn't. Sunlight cut in hazy beams through the kitchen windows as Gabriel Hunter stirred awake on the living room sofa. The house was quiet except for a few faint birdsong notes, the peaceful kind of silence he had once craved after too many late-night meetings and jet-lagged flights. Now, it felt heavy, as if the house was waiting for its true inhabitants to fill it with laughter and noise. He checked the guest room and found Ivy and Sienna Monroe already awake, their hair tangled from sleep. They sat side by side on the bed, whispering over a notebook, sketching out a dream for their mother's return. Perhaps, or simply trying to remember what normal used to feel like. Sienna looked up first, eyes brighter in the soft morning light. Gabriel offered a gentle smile. "Did you sleep okay?" Ivy nodded, cautious. "Your house is very quiet." He knelt to their level, realizing the enormous house might feel less like a haven and more like a museum to them. "It's always been quiet. I think it needs more giggling and pancake breakfasts." Sienna grinned shyly. "We like pancakes. Mom used to burn them a little on purpose so we could call them crunchy cakes." He laughed. "I'll see if I can burn a few for you." In the kitchen, Gabriel fumbled through the pantry, discovering his usual groceries were embarrassingly adult protein shakes, imported coffee, artisanal bread. But there was flour, a half-empty bottle of maple syrup, and just enough eggs for a proper breakfast. As he mixed the batter, Ivy stood on tiptoes beside him, reading the instructions aloud from her phone, determined to get it right. Sienna set the table, carefully placing each fork and napkin in its proper spot. The first pancake turned out nearly raw in the middle. The second was charred. The third, by luck or instinct, was just right light brown, steaming. The girls giggled at his failures and cheered his successes, and Gabriel found himself hoping that maybe, with time, he could learn how to make this life work too. while they ate. Ivy peppered him with questions. What did he do for work? Why did he have so many books? Where did he buy his funny blue mugs? Gabriel answered honestly he ran a technology company. But sometimes he felt more like a lost kid than a CEO. He loved books because they filled empty spaces. And the mugs were a gift from his only friend, Julian, who had a habit of sending odd kitchen gadgets every birthday. After breakfast, Gabriel texted Mary Beth Collins an update. The girls are okay. They want to see Evelyn as soon as possible. Can you let us know when she's ready for visitors? Mary Beth replied within minutes. Doctor, Lynn wants them at the hospital this afternoon. I'll meet you in the lobby at 1. Tell them their mom is asking for their fox and their blue blanket. Gabriel relayed the message, watching Sienna light up at the mention of her fox. They packed a bag with familiar things drawings, a storybook, a crumpled photograph of the three of them at a pumpkin patch. Ivy insisted on bringing a card she'd made, decorated with pressed leaves and careful handwriting. We love you, Mom. Be strong. Before leaving, Gabriel ducked into his study and pulled out Evelyn's letter, reading it again, trying to draw strength from her words. He felt both shame and gratitude. Shame for the years he'd spent letting old wounds fester, for believing he was safer keeping the world at arm's length. Gratitude for this second chance, even if it had arrived wrapped in so much sorrow. On the drive to the hospital, the girls were quieter, the hum of the engine their only soundtrack. Gabriel watched them in the rearview mirror and wondered what it meant to promise you'd always be there for someone. He thought about his own father, a shadowy presence who had vanished when Gabriel was 7, leaving a legacy of uncertainty and a lesson that promises were sometimes just words. He didn't want that for Ivy and Sienna. He wanted to be something better, steady, honest, present. But as the hospital rose ahead, Gabriel felt doubt crawl up his spine. Could he really give them what they needed? Or was he too broken, too late? Mary Beth met them at the sliding doors, her hair pulled back in a loose braid, her eyes crinkling with relief as she saw the twins. They're waiting for you upstairs, she said, her gaze steady on Gabriel. Evelyn's having a better morning. She asked for you, too. The elevator ride was silent, except for the occasional beep. Sienna clung to Ivy's hand, her thumb rubbing the fox's tattered ear. When the doors opened, Gabriel hesitated, letting the girls lead the way down the now familiar corridor. Evelyn Monroe looked brighter than she had yesterday, her cheeks flushed with a touch of color, a spark of hope in her eyes. There you are, she whispered as the twins rushed to her side. She opened her arms, and they tumbled in, the blue blanket draped over all three of them like a shield. Gabriel lingered near the door, not wanting to intrude. Mary Beth nudged him forward. Go on, she murmured. You're part of this now. He stepped closer, and Evelyn looked up, her gaze searching his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The girls filled the silence with their news-burned pancakes, a big bed, the view from the balcony. Sienna handed over her fox, and Ivy placed the card in Evelyn's hand, watching anxiously for her reaction. It's beautiful, Evelyn said, her voice trembling. Thank you, my loves. There was a peace in the way the twins snuggled close, as if the hospital bed had become a safe island. Gabriel felt the urge to stay and protect them from every disappointment. He wished, in that moment, that time could slow and let them have these small joys forever. After a while, Evelyn nodded toward the door. Gabe, could we talk alone? Just for a minute. Ivy and Sienna exchanged looks, twins communicating without words, then quietly slipped out with Mary Beth. When the door clicked shut, Evelyn exhaled. You found my letter. Gabriel nodded, his throat tight. I did. I wish God. Ev, I wish I'd found it sooner. She smiled, the sadness in her eyes deep. Me too. But you're here now. That's what matters. Her fingers shook as she reached for his hand. I need to know you mean what you wrote, that you'll be there for them, that you'll fight. He squeezed her hand gently, trying to will all his conviction into that touch. I will. I swear it. I'm not running. Evelyn, not this time. Tears shimmered in her eyes. They're stronger than you think, but the world isn't always kind. They need someone who'll tell them the truth, even when it's hard. Someone who'll let them fall and help them get back up. Someone who loves them fiercely. Gabriel nodded, fighting his own tears. I want to be that person. I want to try. Evelyn studied him for a long moment, then finally let herself believe. Promise me you won't let them be separated. Not by family, not by the system. They only have each other. He nodded. I promise. She closed her eyes, relief washing over her features. I never stopped loving you. Gabe, that's the truth I wanted you to know. The admission, so simple and so devastating. Left Gabriel standing in the bright hush of the hospital room, more vulnerable than he'd felt in years. He realized he had spent so long building walls to keep out pain that he'd also kept out joy, hope, even love. The cost of silence, he thought, is too high. He would not pay it again. Later, in the hospital lounge, Ivy and Sienna curled up beside him, their heads on his shoulders. He watched them breathe, his promise repeating like a prayer. He would fight for them, no matter what it cost. Rain lashed the city in icy bursts that afternoon, driving the world indoors. Gabriel Hunter pulled the SUV up the long, tree-lined drive, heart pounding as the wipers struggled to keep pace. Ivy and Sienna sat quietly in the back seat, Sienna tracing raindrops on the window, while Ivy clutched her school folder like a lifeline. It felt like any ordinary day, but under the surface, everything was shifting. Gabriel's promise to Evelyn echoed in his mind, weighty and inescapable. Inside, the house felt different already. Where once there was only the hush of empty rooms, now there was the evidence of young lives' pink sneakers by the door, a stack of library books on the table, the faint smell of crayons from a half-finished drawing spread across the kitchen counter. Gabriel didn't realize how much he had missed this kind of clutter, this gentle chaos. He hung up their jackets, checked his phone for updates from the hospital, and tried to think about dinner. What would you like tonight, he asked, more eager to please than he cared to admit. Can we have spaghetti? Sienna piped up, hope flickering in her eyes. Gabriel grinned. I think I can manage that. The girls settled in the living room with their homework and a fuzzy blanket. Gabriel made the sauce from scratch, talking through the steps the way his mother had once done, back when life was simpler. For a moment, he let himself remember those years, the scent of basil in a steamy kitchen, laughter over silly jokes, his father's rough hands teaching him how to knead dough. He blinked away the memories and focused on the present. When dinner was ready, he set the table with 3 plates and called the girls in. Ivy checked her homework one last time before joining them, ever the cautious one. They ate together, telling stories and making plans for the week ahead. It was almost easy to pretend they were just an ordinary family. For a little while. Afterwards, Sienna disappeared into the guest room to work on her drawings, while Ivy helped Gabriel wash the dishes. She was quiet, her small hands scrubbing at a pan, brow furrowed. Everything okay? Gabriel asked, drying a plate. She shrugged, a gesture far older than her years. "Are you going to be mad if we mess up?" Gabriel paused, the weight of her words landing hard. "Why would I be mad? Sometimes grown-ups change their minds. They say you can stay, but then they don't want you anymore." She kept her eyes on the sink, voice barely a whisper. "Mom never did that. She always came back." He knelt down beside her. "Ivy, I can't promise I'll always get things right, but I'm not going to leave you. Not ever. You and Sienna are safe here." She looked at him, studying his face as if searching for cracks in his promise. Finally, she nodded, and Gabriel felt the smallest knot in his chest begin to unravel. Later, after bedtime stories and a second round of teeth brushing, Gabriel checked on the girls. Ivy was asleep, curled around her pillow. Sienna lay awake, her eyes tracing shapes in the ceiling shadows. He sat on the edge of the bed. "Can't sleep." She shook her head. "Do you think Mom will come home?" Gabriel took a deep breath. "I hope so. The doctors are doing everything they can. But even if she can't, you and Ivy still have me, and I'll always tell you the truth, even when it's hard." Sienna nodded, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. Gabriel tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders, wishing love alone could fix everything. He lay awake long after the girls were settled, Evelyn's letter burning in his memory. Was he enough for them? Could he protect them from all the things life had stolen from their mother? Could he ever forgive himself for the years lost? The next morning dawned gray and unhurried. Gabriel packed the girls' lunches, remembering to cut Sienna's sandwich into triangles and Ivy's into squares. A tiny gesture of love he hoped would make their new world feel safer. The drive to school was quiet. Ivy watched the sky, while Sienna hummed under her breath, her fingers dancing across her sketch pad. At drop-off, a woman in a tailored suit approached, her heels clicking on the pavement. "Mr. Hunter," she called, her voice clipped but polite. "I'm Nancy Rivers, with Buncombe County Child Protective Services. May I have a word?" Gabriel's heart lurched. "Of course." Nancy glanced at the girls. "You two go ahead. I'll see you in after school club." "Okay." The twins nodded, offering Gabriel small, worried smiles before vanishing inside. Nancy wasted no time. "We've received a report regarding the girls' welfare," she said, studying Gabriel's reaction. Given their mother's condition, it's protocol to assess potential guardianship. Your name came up as an emergency contact. He swallowed hard. "I'm their biological father," he said quietly. "But I only found out recently. Their mother, Evelyn, she wanted them with me if anything happened. I have her letter, and I'm doing everything I can." Nancy's face softened, but her professionalism didn't waver. "We'll need to conduct a home visit, review your background, financials, emotional preparedness. You understand, I'm sure." Gabriel nodded. He understood all too well the system was designed to protect, but sometimes it felt like another wall to climb. "When this afternoon, if possible." "Of course. I'll make arrangements." Driving home, Gabriel called Mary Beth. "CPS is coming," he explained, anxiety creeping into his voice. "What if I'm not enough? What if they decide I'm not suitable?" Mary Beth soothed him. "Gabriel, the girls need you. Be honest. Be open. Show them you're trying. That's all you can do." He spent the next hours scrubbing the house until it gleamed, stowing away any evidence of loneliness, old wine bottles, the stack of unopened mail, the empty guest room closet. He replaced it all with the girls' drawings, their jackets on the hooks, a line of rain boots by the door. When Nancy Rivers arrived, she moved through the house quietly, asking questions about Gabriel's job, his history, his routines with the girls. He answered everything truthfully, sometimes fumbling, sometimes speaking with unexpected certainty. When Nancy asked about discipline, he hesitated, admitting he didn't know much beyond what he'd learned from watching his mother, from remembering the kindness that had been missing in his own childhood. "Children need safety and consistency," Nancy said. "You're giving them both, it seems." Gabriel nodded, silently promising to keep learning. After she left, he slumped onto the couch, nerves jangling. He knew the visit was only the beginning, a long road of paperwork, interviews, maybe even court hearings, but he felt a glimmer of hope, too. For the first time, it didn't seem impossible. When Ivy and Sienna came home, Gabriel took them for a walk in the drizzle. They splashed in puddles, chased one another across the grass, and returned home soaked and laughing. That night, as he watched them draw beside the fire, Gabriel realized the family wasn't something you earned or inherited. It was something you built, day by day, promise by promise, and he would keep building, no matter what came next. The next days passed in a delicate balance, ordinary on the surface, yet each moment tinged with tension. Gabriel Hunter woke up every morning to the soft sounds of Ivy and Sienna Monroe moving quietly through the house. Their presence, once foreign, was now as familiar as breath. He found himself memorizing the way their laughter filled the hallway, the way their shoes landed side by side at the door, the way a certain patch of sunlight in the living room always seemed to find them in the afternoons. The legal process with Child Protective Services had begun in earnest. Nancy Rivers called regularly, asking for documents, employment records, proof of financial stability, and references from friends and neighbors. Gabriel spent hours compiling everything she requested, determined to leave nothing to chance. He met with a court-appointed therapist who evaluated his readiness for guardianship. He described, sometimes haltingly, his failures and regrets, his desire to build something real for the girls, his deep fear that he would never measure up. On one rain-slick Thursday, Gabriel was called back to the hospital. Evelyn's oncologist, Dr. Miriam Lynn, requested a family conference. Gabriel arrived early, his heart in his throat. He found Mary Beth Collins in the hallway, her eyes tired but kind. "Dr. Lynn wants to talk about next steps," she said, her voice gentle. "It's not just about medical options. It's about what comes after." Gabriel nodded, his chest tightening. He understood, even if he wished he didn't. They met in a small consultation room. Evelyn sat propped in a wheelchair, looking so much smaller than he remembered. The twins hovered beside her, Ivy protectively close, Sienna offering a drawing bright orange foxes in a blue meadow. "Doctor," Lynn spoke carefully, "Evelyn's cancer has advanced. We've done everything possible. At this point, our goal is to make her as comfortable as we can." Evelyn nodded, her jaw set. "I want the girls to remember me at home, not here." Gabriel swallowed, his mind already racing with logistics, medical beds, home nurses, morphine doses, how to keep the girls shielded from pain while letting them say goodbye. He turned to Evelyn. "We'll make it work. I promise." Later, as the twins sat with Mary Beth coloring in the sunlit lounge, Evelyn asked Gabriel to walk with her outside. She gripped his arm tightly, her steps measured. "I need you to hear me," she whispered, wind tugging at her hair. "When I'm gone, there will be people who think you aren't enough. Some of them work in the system. Some might be family. They'll say a single man with no experience shouldn't raise two grieving girls. You have to fight for them, Gabe, even when it hurts. He looked at her, heart in his throat. I will. I'm terrified. Evelyn, but I'm not going anywhere. She smiled sadly. Good. They need someone who'll stay, no matter how hard it gets. That evening, Gabriel took Ivy and Sienna home while Mary Beth stayed behind with Evelyn. The girls were subdued on the ride, watching the city lights flicker past the windows. At home, Sienna curled up with her fox and asked to sleep in Ivy's bed. Gabriel let them, tucking them in and sitting nearby until their breathing evened out. He went into his office and opened his laptop, staring at the forms from CPS. One field. Describe your support system made him pause. He realized how alone he'd let himself become. He wrote about Mary Beth and Julian, about the neighbors who had started leaving casseroles at the door, about his new community, uncertain but real. The next morning brought a surprise. Gabriel found an envelope slipped under the door, addressed to him in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a court notice. His application for emergency guardianship was being challenged. The challenger, his own estranged mother, Delilah Hunter. Gabriel sat in stunned silence, the words blurring. Delilah had not spoken to him in years, not since the funeral of his father. She was a formidable woman, sharp-tongued, elegant, determined to shape her son's life in the image she preferred. She'd never met the twins, had never asked about Evelyn. Yet now, with the possibility of loss, she was inserting herself, using her resources to question his fitness as a parent. He called Mary Beth, voice shaking. She's trying to take them? Beth? My mother. She's petitioned the court for custody. Mary Beth didn't hesitate. You fight her. You get the best lawyer you can find. And you show the court who you are, not who she thinks you are. Gabriel spent the day on the phone first with a local attorney, then with a family counselor, and finally with Julian, his old friend from New York. Julian's voice was steady. This isn't about her, Gabe. It's about you and the girls. Don't let her rattle you. The days that followed blurred together. There were home inspections, interviews, visits with CPS and the family court investigator. Delilah arrived in Asheville the next week, sweeping into the courtroom in a tailored suit, her every move a performance for the judge. She described Gabriel as troubled, unstable, and ill-prepared. She argued that her experience, resources, and stable marriage made her a better candidate for guardianship. Gabriel watched her, remembering all the ways she'd tried to mold him into the son she wanted, the executive, the unbreakable man who never cried. He thought of the long, silent years after his father left, of how Delilah had filled the house with rules and expectations, not warmth. He wondered if she saw the irony now trying to claim the granddaughters she'd never met, out of fear of losing control again, in court. Gabriel spoke quietly, but with conviction. He described Ivy and Sienna, their strengths, their dreams, their pain. He described Evelyn's wishes, reading aloud from her letter. He described his own mistakes and his determination to be present, to love, to learn as he went. After the hearing, Ivy sat on the courthouse steps, legs drawn to her chest. Sienna leaned against her, silent. Gabriel crouched beside them. "Are you scared?" Sienna asked. Her voice small, Gabriel put his arms around both girls. "Yes, a little, but I'm not giving up. We're a family. We stick together." Ivy pressed her cheek into his shoulder. "That's what Mom says." Gabriel closed his eyes, feeling the strength in that small circle, the invisible threads that bound them together. A few days later, a letter arrived from the court. Gabriel's application for emergency guardianship had been approved, Delilah's challenge denied. The relief was so intense, it nearly buckled his knees. He gathered the twins in the kitchen that night. "You're staying with me," he said, his voice thick. "No one's going to take you away." The girls didn't say anything. They just hugged him, as tight as they could, until the fear faded and all that was left was the certainty of love. That night, Gabriel stood on the porch, watching the mist rise over the hills. He thought of Evelyn, of her fierce courage, of all the things she was leaving behind. He wondered if he could really fill her place, if any parent ever could. But he knew this much: the world had come knocking, and he had answered, not perfectly, not without fear or mistakes, but with a heart wide open, and for Ivy and Sienna, he vowed, that would always be enough. Evelyn Monroe's decision to come home for her final weeks changed the house in ways both visible and invisible. It was as if a hush settled over the rooms, but not one of fear, a hush of waiting, of cherishing, of things unspoken but deeply felt. Hospice nurses arrived every morning, quietly navigating the living room with medical bags and gentle voices. The girls helped as they could. Sienna made cards and taped them to her mother's window. Ivy learned to prepare tea exactly the way Evelyn liked it, a skill passed down with the solemnity of a sacred ritual. Gabriel Hunter rearranged his work schedule around the needs of the house, sometimes sending emails at midnight, sometimes standing alone on the porch just to breathe. The legal stress hadn't gone away. His mother's appeal for visitation still lingered in the background like a distant storm. But Evelyn's time, and the girls' need for stability, pushed all other worries aside. The day Evelyn came home, Gabriel carried her from the car, cradling her carefully, afraid she would break. She weighed almost nothing now, her hair soft as breath against his arm. Sienna trailed behind with a bundle of blankets, while Ivy opened every door and checked each lock, as if ensuring the world would stay away. They placed Evelyn's bed in the sunroom, where she could see the dogwood trees, the hummingbirds, the world she'd fought so hard to give her daughters. Sometimes she woke in the night and called out softly for Gabriel, her voice uncertain. Each time, he came quickly, sitting by her side until she drifted back to sleep. Sometimes he would find Ivy, too, curled up in the armchair by the window, unable to rest until she was certain her mother was breathing. There were good days when Evelyn could manage a walk to the garden, leaning heavily on Gabriel's arm, laughing softly at Sienna's stories, or correcting Ivy's math homework with the same precise, loving sternness she'd always shown. The girls cherished these hours. Even Gabriel found himself wishing they could freeze time, hold on to each tiny moment the way Sienna giggled when her mother teased her, the look of pride on Ivy's face when Evelyn praised her neat handwriting, the sunlight pooling at their feet. And there were bad days when Evelyn's pain was too much, when morphine dulled her eyes and the only sounds in the house were the beeps and sighs of medical machines. On those days, Gabriel learned to navigate the dark, how to keep the girls distracted without lying to them, how to answer questions with honesty and compassion, how to hold back his own tears until everyone else had gone to sleep. Sometimes at night, Gabriel stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the moonlight on the counter. He would think about the years he had lost, the decade he'd spent believing Evelyn had left by choice, the birthdays he hadn't known, the daughter he'd never met, the girls, the little family built out of heartbreak, now rested just down the hall. Was he really enough for them? Was love enough? In the end, one afternoon, Sienna found Gabriel in the backyard, watering the tomato plants. She approached quietly, clutching a handful of wild violets. "Can you come inside?" she asked. "Mom wants to talk." He followed her into the sunroom, where Evelyn sat propped against the pillows, a photo album open on her lap. Ivy sat at her side, reading aloud the captions written in Evelyn's neat hand. The girls made room for Gabriel, Sienna nestling against his shoulder. Evelyn gestured to the album. "I wanted to show them who I was before I got sick," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Who we all were, page by page." She told stories about growing up in a small town, about meeting Gabriel in college, about their separate paths, and the years that vanished in the space of a few words left unsaid. She talked about Charlotte, their daughter, with a kind of hopefulness that amazed Gabriel. She spoke of heartbreak, of building a life from almost nothing, of raising the girls to believe in their own strength. "Will you remember these stories?" she asked Sienna and Ivy. The girls nodded, Sienna with tears in her eyes, Ivy holding her mother's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. Afterwards, Evelyn sent the girls to wash up for dinner. She looked at Gabriel, her gaze clear and unflinching. "You'll have to be both parents now," she said, "and maybe more than that. Sienna needs someone who'll listen to her dreams, and Ivy needs someone who'll respect her need for answers. Don't let anyone tell you you're not enough for them, Gabe, especially not yourself." He nodded, words caught in his throat. "Promise me you'll fight for him," she whispered. "I promise." That night, the girls wanted to sleep in the sunroom, curled up on either side of Evelyn. Gabriel brought blankets and pillows, setting up a small camp on the floor. The house was quiet except for the hum of the machines, the wind in the trees, the steady sound of three hearts breathing together. When morning came, Gabriel woke to find Evelyn watching him, her eyes full of something between love and apology. "There's a letter for you," she said. "It's with Mary Beth. For after." He wanted to protest, but she stopped him with a weak shake of her head. "You'll know when it's time." The days grew shorter, the air sharpening as autumn crept in. The girls started back at school, returning home each day with stories and drawings. Gabriel tried to keep routines: breakfast together, homework, walks in the evening. Sometimes it felt impossible, the weight of everything pressing in on him. Sometimes, late at night, he found himself sitting at the edge of Evelyn's bed, afraid to close his eyes. He wondered, over and over, if he was living up to her faith in him. The night before Evelyn died, Gabriel found her awake, staring at the stars outside the window. "I'm not scared," she said. "Not anymore. I just wish I'd had more time." He took her hand, holding it between his own. "The girls will remember. I promise." She squeezed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Take care of them. Gabe, take care of yourself, too." He nodded, tears spilling silently down his cheeks. When dawn broke, Evelyn was gone, her breathing softening, then fading altogether as the first rays of light slipped into the sunroom. The house felt impossibly empty. Mary Beth handled the calls and the arrangements, moving through the day with the calm of someone who had seen too many families fracture and rebuild. The girls were quiet, clinging to each other, their grief raw and private. That night, Gabriel let them sleep in his room, the three of them wrapped together beneath a single quilt. Sienna cried herself to sleep. Ivy stared at the ceiling, dry-eyed, as if willing herself to be strong. In the darkness, Gabriel listened to the rhythm of their breaths and wondered, again, if he could ever be enough. But Evelyn's last words echoed in his memory fight for them. Believe in yourself. Remember the stories. And as he drifted off to sleep, he knew the fight was just beginning. The days following Evelyn's passing felt weightless, almost unreal, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The house, once bright with the chaos of illness and care, grew eerily quiet. Gabriel Hunter moved through the rooms like a man in a half-remembered dream, opening curtains, starting coffee, folding the girls' laundry with slow, automatic hands. He was present, but often not really there, as if part of him was still sitting beside Evelyn's bed, waiting for her eyes to flutter open again. The funeral was small, a gentle affair under a canopy of gold and red maple leaves in the cemetery near the river. Gabriel, still feeling like an imposter in the role of parent, held the twins' hands as they watched Mary Beth and a few friends from the neighborhood place flowers on Evelyn's grave. Ivy stood ramrod straight, her jaw set with stubborn defiance, while Sienna buried her face in Gabriel's coat, sobbing in fits that seemed to echo all the pain and confusion she'd tried to hide. Afterward, back at the house, neighbors drifted in and out, bringing casseroles and quiet condolences. Gabriel thanked each of them, feeling at once grateful and exposed. The twins stayed close, never far from his side. He noticed how Ivy, usually self-sufficient, began to check in before every small decision, and how Sienna seemed to startle at any sudden noise, her wide eyes scanning the room for reassurance. Late that evening, Mary Beth lingered in the kitchen as Gabriel washed the last of the dishes. She hesitated, then handed him a thick envelope. Evelyn's familiar handwriting across the front. "She wanted you to have this," Mary Beth said softly. "Not right away, but when you were ready." Gabriel sat at the kitchen table long after the house was asleep, turning the envelope in his hands. His mind played tricks on him, conjuring up Evelyn's voice, the feel of her hand on his arm, the quiet strength she carried even at the end. Finally, he opened the letter. Inside was page after page of Evelyn's thoughts, memories, apologies, and instructions. She wrote about their past, her regrets for the years lost, her fears about leaving the girls behind, and her faith that Gabriel would find a way to keep them safe. She described Ivy's love of order and logic, Sienna's wild stories and soft heart. "They'll need you to be strong, but they'll also need you to be gentle." Evelyn wrote, "Don't hide your grief from them. Show them it's okay to be sad, to be lost, to not know the answers all the time." Near the end of the letter, Evelyn addressed the reality of what Gabriel would face. There will be people who think you're not enough. There will be days when you believe them. When that happens, look at the girls. See yourself through their eyes. If you do that, you'll never fail them. Gabriel pressed his forehead to the paper and let the tears come. He'd been holding them back for days, trying to be the steady one, the reliable one. But now, with Evelyn's words in his hands and her absence echoing in his chest, he let himself fall apart. The tears weren't just for her, but for all the lost years, the daughter he'd never known, the family he was only now learning how to build. The next morning, Ivy appeared at the kitchen door as Gabriel was pouring cereal. "Did you read Mom's letter?" she asked quietly. Gabriel nodded, wiping his eyes. "Yeah. She said I should be honest. So, I'm scared. Ivy, I miss her. I miss everything I didn't get to have with her. With your mom. With both of you. I'm going to mess up sometimes. But I want you to know, you and Sienna, you're not alone." Ivy nodded gravely, setting her bowl beside his. "We're not going anywhere." It became their unofficial family motto in those early weeks. "We're not going anywhere." When Sienna woke up from nightmares and climbed into Gabriel's bed, when Ivy got frustrated over math homework and slammed her book shut, when Gabriel forgot about school picture day or burned the grilled cheese. The words were always there. They steadied the ship, anchoring the three of them in a world that sometimes felt determined to sweep them away. As the days slipped into weeks, Gabriel tried to establish routines. He drove the girls to school every morning, walking them up the front steps and waving until they disappeared inside. He learned to make pancakes from scratch, signed up for school volunteer days, and hung the girls' artwork in the hallway, proud of every crooked rainbow and lopsided fox. He'd learned the rhythms of their grief, the ways they each processed loss Ivy with silence and fierce independence, Sienna with tears and a need for constant reassurance. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the county court. Delilah Hunter, Gabriel's mother, was appealing for visitation, arguing that the girls deserved access to their extended family. Gabriel's stomach clenched as he read through the formal legal language. Delilah had never visited, never called, but her money and influence were formidable. The idea of letting her into their fragile world felt like inviting a storm. He called his attorney, who advised caution and calm. "You've built a strong case, Gabriel. The girls are thriving. The school has provided excellent references, and Mary Beth is willing to testify. Still, the court may require supervised visits." The next days were fraught with anxiety. Sienna sensed his tension, growing clingier and fretful, while Ivy grew more irritable and withdrawn. The night before the court hearing, Gabriel sat with them on the porch swing, the three of them wrapped in a blanket against the October chill. "I want to ask you both something," Gabriel began, his voice low. "You know my mother is asking the court to visit you. I want to know how you feel about that." Ivy was silent for a long moment. "She's a stranger," she finally said. "She never wrote or called us. Why does she want to see us now?" Sienna frowned, twisting a lock of hair around her finger. "Is it because she wants to take us away?" Gabriel swallowed, trying to steady his voice. "She can't take you away. No one can. Not unless you want to go. But I think she wants to be a part of your life now. Maybe she's scared of losing more family." Ivy eyed him skeptically. "You're scared too." He nodded. "I am. But being scared doesn't mean we stop trying. It just means we go carefully, together." That night, after the girls fell asleep, Gabriel sat alone, turning over the same doubts in his mind. Was he protecting the girls, or sheltering them too much? Should he allow Delilah into their lives for their sake? Or was it his own hurt pride that made him hesitate? He wrote a letter to the court, explaining his concerns, then tore it up, uncertain of everything but the fierce need to keep Ivy and Sienna safe. The next morning, the three of them dressed quietly and drove to the courthouse. Gabriel squeezed their hands as they entered the wood-paneled room. Delilah sat at the front, immaculately dressed, her face unreadable. When the judge asked to speak with Ivy and Sienna privately, Gabriel's heart hammered in his chest. He watched them go, feeling more powerless than he had since Evelyn's death. Minutes later, the girls returned, Sienna clutching Ivy's hand. The judge thanked them, then spoke to Gabriel and Delilah. The girls expressed strong feelings about where they want to be and who they trust. In light of their wishes and the evidence of a stable home environment, I'm denying the petition for unsupervised visitation at this time. Ms. Hunter, you may apply for supervised visits in 6 months, pending progress in your relationship with your granddaughters. Relief flooded Gabriel so powerfully that he felt dizzy. He glanced down to see Ivy's hand in his, steady and sure. "Back home?" Sienna asked. Does this mean we're safe?" Gabriel smiled, kneeling beside them. "It means you get to decide who your family is, and we're not going anywhere." The weeks after the court's decision were a cautious return to normalcy, but Gabriel knew that the calm was fragile, like the surface of a pond disturbed by hidden currents. Delilah Hunter did not disappear quietly. Instead, she began a slow campaign to insert herself into the twins' lives, carefully threading her influence through gifts, letters, and well-meaning but unsolicited visits from distant relatives. Gabriel watched it all with a mixture of wariness and exhaustion, aware that every gesture carried an unspoken question: who really deserved to be their family? One afternoon, as Gabriel helped Ivy with a school science project, the phone rang. It was Mary Beth, her voice low but urgent. "Gabriel, you need to come to the hospital. Evelyn's old doctor wants to see you. It's important." Curiosity mixed with dread. Gabriel hurried to the hospital, Ivy clutching his hand tightly. In a quiet consultation room, Dr. Miriam Lynn sat waiting, her expression grave. "I'm sorry to bring this news so soon," she began. "We've reviewed some new data from Evelyn's case, and it changes things, at least for the girl's future." Gabriel's heart tightened. "What kind of changes, Doctor?" Lynn explained that Evelyn had participated in an experimental clinical trial for an early cancer detection AI system, one that used complex algorithms to identify genetic markers long before symptoms appeared. The system was in its infancy when Evelyn was diagnosed, but her participation had helped refine the technology. "The trial data shows promise," Dr. Lynn said. "If this system is developed fully, it could revolutionize cancer detection, potentially saving thousands of lives, including those at risk in your family." Gabriel thought immediately of Ivy and Sienna, their futures suddenly entwined with a legacy he hadn't known existed. "What can we do?" "We need to find Evelyn's research notes and the company she was working with. There may be grants, patents, or unfinished work that could be the key to completing this project." That evening, Gabriel dove into Evelyn's belongings with renewed purpose. He and Mary Beth sifted through boxes of files, journals, and digital drives. Among the clutter, they found a password-protected laptop with encrypted files labeled Project Lumen. Evelyn's notes detailed her collaboration with a small biotech startup developing predictive health technology. Gabriel called Robert Turner, Evelyn's longtime neighbor and confidant. Robert arrived the next day, and together they began untangling the threads Evelyn had left behind. Robert revealed that Evelyn had been fighting uphill battles for funding and recognition, her work undervalued by the medical community and overshadowed by bigger players. It wasn't just cancer, Robert explained. She was trying to create a system that could predict multiple diseases, potentially years before symptoms appeared. Gabriel felt a surge of pride and sorrow. His Evelyn had been a warrior in every sense, fighting not only for her life, but for a future that others might never see. Meanwhile, life with Ivy and Sienna continued to challenge and teach him. The twins were growing into their own personalities in the face of loss. Ivy's meticulousness sometimes veered into anxiety, while Sienna's creativity was her refuge and her rebellion. One evening, as Gabriel read Sienna's latest story, a wild tale of a brave fox who outsmarted the shadows, he noticed the tension in Ivy's face. "Ivy, what's on your mind?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then spoke with the honesty that had always both amazed and humbled him. "I'm scared. Dad, what if Grandma was right? What if I'm not enough? What if Mom's gone forever, and I'm alone?" Gabriel swallowed hard, fighting the lump in his throat. "Ivy, you are so much more than enough. You are strong, smart, and so loved. Mom's gone, but her love is still with you, and I'm here every day, no matter what." Ivy nodded slowly, but Gabriel could see the shadows of doubt lingering. Those moments reminded him why Evelyn had warned him about the fight ahead, not just against external forces, but the battles within their own hearts. As the fall deepened, Delilah's presence grew more insistent. She sent extravagant gifts, designer clothes, expensive books, even a tablet loaded with educational apps. She called regularly, her tone alternating between sweet concern and icy command. At times, she showed up unannounced, expecting to be welcomed as family. Gabriel stood firm. When Delilah appeared one crisp afternoon at the front door, Ivy and Sienna watching nervously from the living room, he met her with calm resolve. "Mother, we need to set some boundaries," Gabriel said. "The girls need stability, and that means respect for their home, their routine, and their choices." Delilah's eyes flashed. "I only want what's best for them." "Then respect their wishes," Gabriel replied steadily. "They don't want unsupervised visits, and they need consistency." For a long moment, silence stretched between them like a fragile bridge. Finally, Delilah nodded stiffly and left, but the tension lingered. Gabriel knew this was just the beginning. One night, after the girls were asleep, he sat at his desk reviewing Evelyn's encrypted files. With Robert's help, he began to decode Project Lumen's algorithms and data. The work was complex, cutting edge, a marriage of biology and machine learning that felt both revolutionary and daunting. As he worked, his phone buzzed with a message from Rachel Wells, his COO from his tech firm. "How's the family?" Gabriel smiled faintly, typing back, "Better. Hard. But we're holding together." Rachel's reply was quick. "Need you back soon. Board pressure is mounting. They want updates on the merger." He stared at the message, torn between worlds, the urgent demands of his career and the fragile sanctuary he'd built at home. For years, he'd measured success by stock prices and acquisitions. Now, success was measured by bedtime stories and broken crayons. He typed slowly. "Not yet. Family first." The next morning, Ivy found him lost in thought on the porch. "Dad, what's wrong?" Gabriel took her hand. "I'm just thinking about how to finish what Mom started. Her work could save lives. Ivy, we have to make sure it happens." Ivy's eyes brightened. "Can I help?" Gabriel nodded, heart swelling. "Absolutely." Together, they began small, reviewing simple data sets, testing basic algorithms, even teaching the twins to spot patterns in everyday life. Ivy's natural aptitude for math and Sienna's creative flair became unexpected assets. One evening, as they sat around the kitchen table, Sienna asked softly, "Do you think Mom and Grandma are proud of us?" Gabriel looked at their faces so full of hope and pain and answered honestly, "I believe they are, and they're watching us, every step of the way." The girls smiled, a lightness returning to their eyes. Gabriel knew the road ahead was long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, he felt ready to walk it, not alone, but with his family by his side. Gabriel felt the weight of the months pressing against him like a relentless tide. The challenges of blending two worlds, the fierce, fragile family he was building at home, and the high-stakes corporate empire waiting impatiently for his attention, created a tension that never quite eased. Each morning, he woke with a knot of anxiety, wondering how long he could sustain the balance without one side breaking. The girls had grown more comfortable with their new life, but grief still shadowed their days in quiet moments. Ivy, ever the logical one, sometimes disappeared into her room, surrounded by math books and puzzles. her way of keeping the chaos at bay. Sienna, more emotional and expressive, found solace in drawing and storytelling, filling sketchbooks with worlds that mingled fantasy and truth. One afternoon, as Gabriel helped Ivy with her homework, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from Rachel Wells. The board was growing restless. Investors demanded updates on Donovan Technologies' merger, and rumors of instability were spreading through the company like wildfire. Gabriel closed the textbook and looked out the window at the pale autumn sky. The burden of expectation pressed down harder than ever. He had promised Evelyn he'd finish Charlotte's work and build a legacy worthy of the girls. But corporate battles were threatening to pull him back into a world where family mattered less than profit. That evening, after tucking the twins into bed, Gabriel sat alone in the dim glow of his office, reviewing the latest progress on Project Lumen. The algorithms were promising, but funding remained uncertain, and the path from research to real-world impact was strewn with obstacles. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Ivy stepped inside, clutching a small notebook. "Dad, I wanted to show you something." Gabriel smiled and motioned for her to come closer. She opened the notebook, revealing pages filled with her neat handwriting and calculations. "I've been working on a way to improve the predictive model. It might help catch earlier signs of cancer." Gabriel's heart swelled. "This is incredible. Ivy, your mom would be so proud." She blushed, looking down. "I just want to help." In that moment, Gabriel felt a surge of hope. Maybe they could do this not just for Evelyn's memory, but for all the families who would come after. But the shadows of the past were never far behind. The next day, Delilah Hunter escalated her campaign. She sent a lawyer to the school, demanding records and pushing for more visitation rights. The staff, caught in the crossfire, grew uneasy, and the girls sensed the tension, retreating further into their shells. Gabriel met with their attorney and Mary Beth to strategize. "We have to protect the girls," Mary Beth said firmly, "but we also have to find a way to show Delilah that this isn't about control, it's about what's best for Ivy and Sienna." Gabriel nodded, exhaustion etched on his face. "I just want them to have peace." One afternoon, as Gabriel waited outside the school for the girls, he noticed a figure watching from across the street. Delilah, her eyes sharp and calculating. The sight sparked a storm of old wounds and new fears. That night, unable to sleep, Gabriel wandered to the sunroom, where Evelyn's photographs lined the walls. He found himself drawn to a picture of Evelyn and Charlotte, arms wrapped around each other, smiles bright and full of promise. A soft voice broke his reverie. Dad Ivy stood in the doorway, her face troubled. "Do you think Grandma is watching us?" Gabriel knelt beside her. "I believe she is, and she's proud of how strong you and Sienna are." Ivy's gaze searched his. "But what if she's disappointed in me?" Gabriel took her hands, steady and sheer. "You could never disappoint her. You're doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can ask." They sat together in silence, the weight of love and loss mingling in the quiet. The following weeks tested Gabriel's resilience. At Donovan Technologies, the board pushed for his return to full leadership, demanding he prioritize the merger or risk losing support. Rachel kept the company steady, but the pressure mounted daily. At home, the girls' therapist noted signs of stress nightmares, anxiety, bursts of anger, and Gabriel faced the heartbreaking task of helping them navigate grief while maintaining the routines that anchored their fragile world. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Gabriel found Sienna in the kitchen, tears streaking her face as she clutched a worn teddy bear. "I miss Mom," she whispered. "I don't want to forget her." Gabriel knelt beside her, pulling her into a hug. "We won't forget her, sweetheart. We carry her with us in our hearts, in our stories, in everything we do." Sienna sobbed softly, and Gabriel held her until the tears slowed. In the months that followed, Project Lumen made slow but steady progress. Gabriel secured a partnership with a major medical center, and Ivy's ideas became part of the development team's discussions. The girls grew more confident, their laughter returning in small bursts. Yet Delilah's presence lingered like a storm cloud, threatening to disrupt the fragile peace. Court hearings loomed, and Gabriel knew the battle for custody was far from over. One crisp autumn morning, as the family sat at breakfast, Gabriel received a call from his attorney. "The court date is set," she said. "You need to prepare." Gabriel looked at Ivy and Sienna, their faces bright with innocence and hope. He steeled himself, knowing the fight ahead would demand everything he had. But for the first time in a long while, he felt ready. Because no matter what came next, this family, fragile, complicated, and fiercely loving, was worth fighting for. The day of the custody hearing arrived with a chill that seeped into Gabriel's bones, though he kept his composure for Ivy and Sienna. The courthouse felt imposing, its marble halls echoing with footsteps and whispered conversations. Gabriel held the twins' hands tightly as they entered the courtroom, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them all. Delilah Hunter sat across the room, her expression unreadable. Flanked by her legal team, her presence radiated cold determination, a stark contrast to the fragile hope Gabriel clung to. The hearing began with formalities, but soon the tension mounted. Delilah's attorney painted a picture of Gabriel as an overwhelmed, distracted father, too consumed by corporate battles to provide the stable home the girls needed. They presented emails suggesting missed appointments and late pickups, emails that Gabriel knew had been doctored. Gabriel's attorney countered with testimonials from teachers, therapists, and neighbors. Mary Beth testified about the girls' resilience and Gabriel's unwavering dedication. Ivy and Sienna sat quietly, clutching each other's hands, their eyes wide but resolute. When it was Gabriel's turn to speak, he rose slowly, heart pounding, yet voice steady. "I stand here not just as a businessman, but as a father and grandfather. These girls are my world. I will do everything in my power to protect and nurture them. Their mother, Evelyn, trusted me with their care, and I intend to honor that trust every day." He glanced at Ivy and Sienna, their faces shining with hope and courage. "The past months have been difficult, but we have grown together. We are a family bound not just by blood, but by love, commitment, and sacrifice. I ask this court to recognize that, to see beyond politics and pressure, and to place the best interests of these children at the center." The judge's gaze softened. "Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I understand the gravity of your commitment." Delilah rose for her final statement, her voice cold and clipped. "Your Honor, stability is paramount. These children deserve consistency, not chaos. I offer them the support and environment they need to thrive." The courtroom fell silent as the judge deliberated. Minutes stretched into eternity before she spoke. "After careful consideration, I find that the best interests of Ivy and Sienna are served by remaining in the care of Mr. Hunter. Visitation rights for Miss Hunter will remain supervised and subject to review." Relief flooded Gabriel like a tidal wave. He knelt to hug the twins, who clung to him with tears and laughter intertwined. Outside the courthouse, sunlight warmed their faces, a promise of new beginnings. Back home, the atmosphere transformed. With legal battles behind them, Gabriel focused on building the life Evelyn had dreamed of for the girls. He expanded Project Lumen, securing funding and assembling a dedicated team to complete Charlotte's groundbreaking work. Ivy and Sienna, inspired by their mother's legacy, threw themselves into learning, supported by Gabriel's steady presence and love. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Ivy shared her latest science project, excitedly explaining how it could improve the AI's accuracy. Sienna read aloud from a story she'd written, weaving themes of hope and courage. Gabriel listened, heart full, knowing that amidst the scars of the past, a new family was flourishing. Though shadows remained memories of loss, challenges of healing, Gabriel understood that love was the force that would carry them forward. The twins, once fragile and frightened, were now thriving, their laughter a balm to his soul. Evelyn's legacy lived on, not just in algorithms and research, but in the strength and spirit of the family they had forged together. As night fell over Seattle, Gabriel stood on the balcony, Ivy and Sienna by his side. The city lights sparkled beneath them, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be found. Grandpa Sienna whispered, "Do you think Mom and Grandma see us?" Gabriel smiled, wrapping an arm around each girl. "I believe they do, and they're proud of everything you are." Ivy nodded, her eyes shining. "We're lucky to have you." Gabriel kissed their heads, feeling the weight of the journey behind and the promise of the future ahead. "We're lucky to have each other," he said softly. "And that's what family is all about." As we close this chapter of Gabriel's journey, we're left with a powerful reminder. Family is not just blood, but the choices we make every day to love, protect, and stand by one another even when the past tries to keep us apart. This story shows us the resilience of the human spirit, the strength of a quiet, steady love, and the courage it takes to confront not only external enemies, but the hidden betrayals within our own walls. At the same time, it exposes the devastating consequences of discrimination and deception, how one person's lies can ripple through generations, altering lives and futures. It challenges us to speak up against injustice and to never allow prejudice to destroy the families who deserve our protection and support. If Gabriel's story moved you, if it touched your heart or inspired you to believe in second chances, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul. We have so many more journeys to explore together, stories of hope, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds that define us. Stay with us, and let's keep the conversation going.